Okay, we good? I think so. Okay, welcome. Let's get a quick pledge of allegiance and then hopefully I'll go ahead and lead it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we jump into Peter's presentation, I wanted, this is more of a conversation, kind of a continuation of what we talked about last week. So 2 years ago, when I got involved, I went to the city council meeting and they had done, Chris, I think you were there, they were doing a 5 or 10% budget increase. And that's when they said, get on the budget committee. And I said, here I am. Last year, there was another 5 to 10% increase. And that when I went to the council and I was like, wait a minute, I thought we were doing the road fee. We're not doing the budget, the tax increase. And then the state came back and said we can't do the tax increase, right? Because there was a technicality. Okay. Correct. In the meeting 2 times ago, John said that last year we got burned on that tax increase. Now we've already kind of discussed the very first meeting this year. I said, what were the needs that we had last year that we had to do the property tax increase? But since we couldn't do the property tax increase, we couldn't do those needs. So were they really needs? And I believe the answer was basically we just kind of shuffled some things around. Is that kind of how we're remembering this?
And it got, I mean, some of that got taken out of retained earnings.
Yeah, we held some trainings off, and then there was some. Largely, they held positions open over at the police station.
So the budget last year was mostly for hiring again.
Well, I mean, like
last year was going to be for hiring primarily.
No, I mean, when you mean hiring, meaning raises, or you mean?
Well, last year the citizen committee said we said don't do a tax increase, and the council came back and wanted to do a tax increase. What was the purpose of that tax increase last year that didn't happen?
Well, I mean, like you said, once we knew that we couldn't do the tax increase, like only a smattering of people went to certain training.
Okay.
So that training budget, not budget, but people scaled back.
Okay.
Because we knew that we couldn't spend what we had budgeted to spend.
Okay.
Across the board.
Right.
So that's how and then with the other thing is that there was basically leftover from
there was
2 years ago.
Correct.
So that's kind of how they balanced some of it.
Okay.
But so in most regards, it was an overall thing, not necessarily a specific item that was picked.
Okay. Now we're going to come back to that with this year with the new state deal. Okay. So this year, the council has done the top fee, which me personally, I support. We've gone over that pretty good. There has not been much positive feedback on the road fee, but I think people are understanding of it. And now this year we have another proposed property tax increase. Okay. Now, when that popped out on Facebook the other day, I read through the majority of the comments, and I'm assuming some of you guys followed that as well. How many positive comments are we getting based on the proposed property tax increase?
Instead of
meaning
sarcastic,
I support. Yeah,
I would think.
Zero.
I mean, no, there was a couple that were kind of like they'd like to see how or why. They were kind of reserving their judgment based on more detail because there's zero detail,
right?
Which is fine. But funny thing is that I kind of motioned that the budget's there. So
and some of the comments said, "Go look at the budget." Get involved before you just come out and say, "Hey, everybody, the city's bunch of wings."
And the point is, not basically, nobody really should have to go and dig into the budget to understand what the city's doing, and that's on us. Right. But the problem is that when they start getting overzealous on some of the comments, that I think that's where I was kind of like, okay, hold on.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yes, I think it was. Because we had to do this based on all of the new state stuff, and we had to get it right out in front. And we picked 5.
Yep.
You know, and it's just but yeah.
So and again, I was a little bit surprised to see another property tax increase this year, but the fact that last year it didn't happen doesn't shock me. Okay. Yeah. Now I want to back up a little bit. So last year's property tax increase that didn't happen, what was the dollar amount that we were hoping to raise? 189,
49,
140 something
around there.
Easy number, 150 grand. Okay. So the property tax proposal was put out, and somewhere we at the city screwed up and were unable to do that $150,000 property tax increase. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. did anybody get held accountable for a $150,000 burn, to use John's word, or mistake? Meaning, whose job was it to make sure that we dotted every I and crossed every T last year to get the property tax increase that didn't happen, and therefore we didn't get the property tax increase?
Do you know what it was?
Well, there was a technicality that we.
Right, it was during the meeting, they were supposed to show
Yep.
Anyway.
Regardless.
Yeah.
Somebody screwed up because the city couldn't raise taxes last
But
year.
John raised his hand already.
Okay.
It's like, it was me, I
Okay.
didn't show it on the screen.
Okay.
And so therefore,
So if John, and I was curious if John be here. So again, $150,000 mistake is kind of a big mistake. I've fired people for less than that. Okay. So John said though that we got burned last year. That was his word in the meeting 2 meetings ago. So if we got burned, who was held accountable? But I'm on the flip side of that saying, no, we, the citizens, did not get burned. We got bailed out by a technicality because somebody didn't do their job correctly. Again, technicality, little mistake does not matter. In the real world, you make a $150,000 mistake, there's consequences. So I'm kind of taking issue with John saying that we got burned last year because, again, as a citizen, I'm going, no, we didn't get burned. Now, moving forward, are we going to get burned again? Meaning, is the city not going to do their job and do it correctly, so therefore they can't raise taxes? And are we citizens going to be unhappy that they're not raising taxes on us? Or are we going to be grateful, and for lack of a better term, some incompetence? Okay. Difficult discussion, but I think it's fair. Okay. So, any thoughts on that? Because I don't feel like we got burned last year. I feel like we got bailed out. And then moving forward this year, the state has more requirements to make sure the city is doing it correctly. So we citizens are aware. It's a bigger pain in the butt to you city guys. But as a citizen, I'm grateful for that.
well, there's a couple points that they exempted the people that are the problem, but that's just a different story. They were basically saying, oh, well, don't worry, school boards, you're exempt, you don't have to worry about this stuff. Wait a minute, that's the problem.
Who exempted who? They're the problem. You said
The state, during the part of the law or the negotiations, because we watched all of this in the real time, that the problems are, if you look at open up your tax thing, and what's the biggest thing on there?
School board.
School board.
Right.
Yeah, so basically the raise that the school board got, Weber County, maybe I might be messing with the Fox Elder, but their raise was what our yearly budget is.
Yeah,
So
that's irrelevant. That's
irrelevant.
It's still
true.
here for North Ogden City.
But being accountable is correct, but at the same time, the state legislature needs to be accountable for the fact that they didn't even put an appeal process in place.
Yeah.
So they passed a law without any type of go back. And that's what it is.
Yeah.
Did we mess up and not put up a slide? Yeah. Was it a slide that mattered? No.
It was a stupid.
So,
I agree with that.
Yeah, but I guess the point is that when you say someone needs to be accountable, John raised his hand and it said my fault. Are we supposed to fire him because of that? No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But I mean, lesson learned for the city, and everybody in the city had to tighten their belt. Yeah. So I don't know.
And there was multiple just to give you some insight. Like there was multiple trainings on how to do this new rule. Not one time in any of those trainings, and we brought this to the state and said, not one time did it say that you had to post this. Like so.
Well, then how can they hold it back?
It was in multiple cities got held up for the exact same thing we did.
The school district must $30
Yeah. And even in their trainings, it wasn't.
Lost it. As a citizen taxpayer, I'm saying these entities didn't forcefully take it. But I disagree that it was lost because we got to keep more of our money. And I think that's the point. Is it's a balance here between city municipalities wanting to take more money and citizens being supportive. My point is so now we're doing the third year in a row with the property tax increase. And John has said last year and confirmed this year that he supports a property tax increase every year. Okay. I don't support that as a taxpayer. We talked about wages last week, and I'm not trying to come to anybody, but the idea that, in John's words, that city employees are entitled to a 3% raise every year, I just disagree with that. And is that the plan? Is that the idea? Again, I think for this group, for this I think it's a fair discussion to have. It's a bigger discussion, but again, the idea of just continually raising property taxes every year, I don't think that's a good plan. Okay.
Just point of clarification. I'm not arguing for or against that. I'm just saying that a lot of it comes to where your valuation comes in. And I agree that the property tax should not be based on your valuation because that's a fake number. And that's the thing I have a hard time with. And why I hate to say this, that California has it right, is that the last time that's what your valuation should be, not what it is today that you could maybe sell it for. So I agree that is a broke system. The problem is we have that broke system, and that's the only way that it goes up. And the effective tax rate actually goes down in the year that you don't raise your tax to what it was. So my point is that there's a lot of stupid things that go on with property tax that I think should be fixed. The problem is that we can't. So we got the system that we got, and the problem is that that's a big part of our budget that we have to evaluate, and that's the only sort of minor, kind of sort of steady one that we know can not be less than this. So when we start guessing at some of these other revenues, like we've been talking about already, you conservative or are you really overzealous and then have to come back and not steal money, but borrow money from the previous year to make up for it?
Right.
That's the problem that we face. I'd love a solution.
Yeah. Well, there are solutions, in my opinion.
Right.
So, let's go, we'll go along that.
Yes.
The property tax increase this year, the dollar amount we're trying to give is, what was it again, this year?
150.
150, okay. We are losing 100 to 150 grand in the recreation department. Okay, the revenues versus the expenses on the materials, like 70 grand, I believe, from last time. 70 is offset zero, not including labor. Right there, boom, 100 grand can be made up. Okay, 150 grand, depending if there's other administrative labor. Okay, we talked about the pool. On the pool, you know, you said last time, what's the number for the price? You said you're raising it to 950. The number is you take last year's revenue divided by last year's expenses and divided by the participants, and you put a number on it. And then if you want to be completely honest, you add in depreciation to the cost and you put that number on it. And if the number is $15 a head, let's do $15 a head. So there's another solution. Okay, they're not, but we're talking financial solutions. I understand the unintended consequences and the idea of getting rid of recreation department, blah, blah. I understand those, but this is a financial meeting, a financial discussion. There are solutions. Okay?
Correct. Yeah, and that's the awesome part about why I love you talking all the time, to be honest, because you say the hard things, and I'm writing stuff down. So,
okay. I appreciate what you guys do. I mean that. Okay. Do you live in Ogden? Where do you live?
Harrisville.
Okay. Well, you're our close neighbor friend. I live in North Ogden. You know, I appreciate what you guys do, but I'm not going to lie. When I go to city council meetings, I see some of these meetings, it feels like it is the citizens against the city. Okay. Because the city, and I'm going to call out Hess, to me, it feels like he's promoting development that none of the citizens want. And it feels like he's bending some rules and in favor of the developer, when the citizens are all going, no, let's not do that. And my point is, we shouldn't have that. Having John live in North Ogden, he used to live. I don't know if he still does.
John.
Oh,
yeah, he does.
To me, that's super helpful because again, he understands it. And I said to city council, my roots are deep here. My roots are going deeper. Like in 10 years, when you guys have finally added my soccer stadium that I've been asking for 20 years, and we can laugh at what a stupid idea is, you know. But this is what I'm paying for. You guys aren't here. You don't necessarily. It's helpful to have someone in the city who, again, I feel like would look out for the city's interests versus, again, calling out Hess. To me, it feels like he's going for developers' interests. Okay. Now, I'm gonna get off my soapbox. That was my thought. This stuff has cost me a lot of sleep, but I appreciate you at least listening to me. Any other thoughts, rebuttals, stabbings you want to do at me today, since I'm doing all the talking now? Okay.
I did a quick scrub on it and sent an email out with an attachment to everybody.
Yeah, you got a whole bunch of comments here. I would like you to speak up as Peter's going through this stuff as best you can, because I've been thinking about other stuff and only briefly read through the majority of this, so anyway.
Okay.
One item before you get into it is that I agree with your statement about you can steal something from here and take something from there. The problem is that there's a lot of things that go up and down every year, and that's the thing I want to try to even out.
What do you say? A lot of things.
That you need one year but not the next.
Okay.
So elections will be one of them.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I'm trying to figure out. And I think John had an idea. Well, we'll buy servers on the other year so that it's not an up and down situation.
Why can't you just put election fee every year of $10,000 a year? Why?
Because you're not showing you're not paying for it that year.
Okay.
You can't
That's a
carry
state
it.
law?
You can't carry it either.
It's the accounting gets.
Or what do you mean a fee?
So if elections cost it was a 40 grand that they cost 42,000 every other year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you just put $20,000, $21,000 in the budget every year?
Oh, yeah, we can't do that. You
Why
have
can't we? Who says we
accounting
can't?
rules.
Who's accounting rules?
The accounting rules.
The accounting rules. So governmental accounting and GAAP state that when you expend an item, you have to match it in the actual period that you've expensed it.
Okay.
It would be nice to be able to like amortize it, but we only have elections every 2 years, and so
The solution you're talking about then is perfect. Then you 20,000 election or 40,000 election, 40,000. Yeah, that to me is not a difficult thing.
Right, but at the same time, that's one thing, and there's 1,600 more identical things that, hey, I need a dump truck this year, but I don't need it for 4 years. It's all of these little things that pop up every year, and it's the grand scheme that keeps me up at night.
some of those bigger things, like the trucks and stuff, I've noodled over after what Neil's talked about. I think we have an opportunity to maybe, I mean, it's still going to be in the budget, but when we do some sort of kind of forward promoting public look at it, we can sort of extract some of that stuff out so that it's less cumbersome. You don't see the ups and downs as much. So we can do stuff like that. The elections one's a little more difficult, but anything capital or like offset costs, transfers, things like that, we can isolate those a lot easier.
Yeah, and I think what would help during budget season is to say if you do have a big expense or something that pops out in your summary slide that we've already, expense wise, that hey, we've already talked about this, so that's not going to be a big revenue hit because we already have saved something for it. So, and that's kind of the overall scheme of things of how I think we're going to have that 2-page summary thing that goes to your point of what am I paying for? Why is this 100? Why are you stealing more taxes from me? Because that's what it really is, right?
I say forcefully taken.
I know, forcefully taken. But at the same time, it should anything that we ask for more of the citizen, we should have a very, 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 very good reason why. Because everybody gets taken from, not just specific people or whatever.
Well, not everybody. These two guys don't pay that because
Anybody in the city.
correct.
Yes.
And again, don't take this the wrong way, guys. But you understand too. Somewhere down in Harrisville, they're having similar conversations. Somewhere in Ogden, they're having similar conversations, and your experience could be valued there. So again, the point is, I just don't like this idea. Every time I show up at a meeting, it feels like it's the citizens against the city. And I've had that with school board. I've had that conversation with school board meetings with Weaver County multiple times. So it's not. I'm not just trying to single out North Ogden City. Okay. Yeah, Phil, please respond to my.
Oh, no.
I gave you my rant yesterday.
Yeah, we've had great conversations. The difficult part, and I'm speaking as a former council member, and then 4 years on this committee. The difficult part is that it is easy as a citizen to look at the budget from a pure mathematical standpoint. We can make things work mathematically easy. But when you're talking about eliminating a rec department, closing down the pool, things like that, there's more than math that's involved for many residents. The residents that you typically hear from are the ones that look at it from a pure mathematical standpoint. Mathematically, we can make this work. Yes, you can. But the city council and the mayor, they have to consider more than just math. They have to, because there's a large portion of, I don't know, you'd have to do surveying and all that kind of good stuff, but there's a large portion of the city that feels that there is benefit to the pool, that there is benefit to the parks, that there is benefit, it's worth being taxed.
So my soccer stadium in there.
You're exactly right, but most of your conversation comes from a pure mathematical standpoint. There is an answer to this mathematically. You're right, there 100% is. If it were simply an engineering mathematical problem that we need this rocket to go from here to there in the shortest time possible without blowing up in the middle, there's math that tells us how to do that. How to run a city and provide the services that the residents want, that some residents want, other residents don't want. And the ones that don't want these do want these, and the ones that do want don't want those. Balancing that is not a mathematical problem. There's no algorithm, there's no formula, there's not a machine that you can plug that into and say there's a solution. And the solution will change depending on the makeup of the legislative body. You get a really hard conservative body, you're going to have a more austere government. You get a more liberal, less conservative body, you're going to have more spending. It just, and they both spend, right? But I think part of what's missing or what isn't understood, that isn't readily visible to most people, is that there isn't, at least in North Ogden city government, there isn't wasteful spending, depending on how you define it, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a purely mathematical person, you can go, that's wasteful, that's wasteful, that's wasteful, that's wasteful. If you're not a mathematical person and you're saying, okay, what are the societal benefits of having a park, of having a pool, of having a skate park, of having this, of having that, those are intangible costs and benefits that you can't put a dollar amount on, but they very much change the tenor and the nature of the city that you live in. And that's what council ends up doing, is looking at it mathematically. Okay, mathematically, we could do this. I know many times sitting down with Mayor Berube, mathematically, Phil, we can do this. We can just wipe everything off, but it means eliminating that. And it means eliminating this, and it means eliminating that. And there's no way the citizens are going to go for that. They're not going to allow that to be eliminated.
Have we been given a chance?
Well, that's what we elect our officials to do. As we had this conversation yesterday.
Yeah.
We're not a democracy. We elect 5 people and a mayor to make decisions on our behalf. What they think is the right thing for the city to do. They're not poll takers. They're not opinion takers. We get to tell them what we think is best, but that's just our opinion. They're the ones that make the decision, the final decision. And if we don't like the decisions they're making, then every 2 years we get to tell them, you don't get to serve anymore. We want somebody else in there. I'm telling you, just from being on both sides,
And I respect your experience. You and I are going to agree to disagree on this, as we have for the last 10 or 15 years.
And we're still friends.
We're still friends.
You know, I have a Jeep and you don't.
And the problem is
Now, that
they
was
have
just
to
uncalled
deal with the whole thing. What's that? The problem is they have to deal with the whole
They do.
thing.
They got it. Okay.
That's right.
That was more time than I wanted. Peter, thank you. Mike probably got tired.
You had to get less.
Okay. Peter, why don't you jump in and start going through the budget, and then we can address some of the other questions too.
Okay. The budget was
Get to share it too.
obviously put out publicly for people to read, peruse. My intent today is to kind of walk through it at a very high level, as much for your benefit as for anybody watching this online or later on, so they can kind of see sort of from maybe a 5,000 level perch,
Go back into the.
and kind of what we're thinking in terms of the budget. While he's getting set up, I just want to point out the way that budgeting works in cities and counties and a lot of governments is it's a working document. So what you see right now is sort of kind of the first broad
I think
brush.
that's like 2.
We've put it out there. We have a month and some change to chew on it a little bit and look at it. We did tend to put in as much as we could, if that makes sense. And then we'll sort of scale it back, or we might need to find some other places we're going to spend some money as we go through and kind of look at it. But I just wanted to give you sort of a bird's eye picture of sort of how we're approaching this. So as we go through it, recognize that there's opportunities, there will be opportunities to make changes, make adjustments. We're already making adjustments. For the most part, what I'm talking about today is gonna be what the document, online was, what we published online. So just to start with, in our general fund, our general taxes, we're projecting $9.64 million. And let's talk about the property tax thing, because that's important. The state laws have changed in terms of how we do property taxes, for good or for bad. I think it's good because it sort of forces us to determine, not only in a narrative, so when the budget was published, it's called an impact statement. When we raise taxes, we have to tell the public what that's going to be for. Secondarily, we have to put in our budget, in a line item, where that's going to be spent. So in the budget, you'll see a line that says property tax increase or increment. It has to be isolated. And from the impact statement, and we'll go over that a little bit, essentially what we're covering is a new CSO position over at the police station. Those are people that do community enforcement, and a vehicle. And the other piece is a cybersecurity software. Now, that's what we're sort of putting on the plate as far as how to isolate that increment. It may come in a few weeks as we go through it. We may not need to do that. If we can find the funds for it, we may not need to hike that. We might be able to just absorb it without the hike. But we're going to start with that sort of understanding, because of the state rules and stuff. You have to do it by May 1st. We want to make sure, just in case we have to, that we have that in place so that we can continue marching forward. So you'll see those sort of outlined. I also want to say that if you feel as citizens that there's other ways in which we should peg those increases, we probably ought to listen to that as well.
Hold on, you say peg those increases.
If we're going to increase taxes, where would we want to see that isolated in the budget?
So if you,
As a citizen, let's not increase taxes.
I get it, but if you're going to do it, we're saying this. We're putting forth suggestions. If it's going to do it, here's where it's going to come from. Is there an other alternative?
We've got all kinds of increases, but seems like an easy one to identify.
Well, yeah, and from a point of view of, if we recognize that all taxes are fungible, meaning they're not put into the lock boxes. But generally speaking, the way to think about how we fund our cities, that property taxes, we look at it in terms of, it helps to fund our public safety. Our sales taxes sort of fund everything else. And so we're trying to look at public safety based expenses that would kind of meet what's been a traditional narrative.
and the other part of the 5% is, because we have to specify it, we pick things that make sense that are going to go forward, right? We're not going to pick a truck because that won't go forward, and so that doesn't make sense to raise taxes one time for something like that. Where this CSO will go forward, the vehicle will, the software for our cybersecurity, all of that kind of stuff will go forward.
Right. But on your budget sheet, your number's much higher than the ask on the impact statement.
Hold on, Mike, please jump into that. I want to follow up what you just said, and this is a question for council. Sorry to Phil and Chris. So basically, the 150 grand is going to go for the CSO. If next year we decide, whoever we is, that we don't want the CSO, can that 150 grand be dropped back down? Or are we just doing, which is my ultimate gripe, is growing government bigger and bigger? That makes sense?
Yeah.
I mean, you said
100%.
moving forward, so the point is, you're right, they're saying you support the idea of just growing government. We're gonna get this employee, we're gonna keep them, then we're gonna get more and more and more. We're just growing government. And my opinion.
And I understand what you're saying.
So is it possible to eliminate that position next year and drop 150 grand?
If from what the understanding from what chiefs, the needs are for the CSO, like, I can't see that getting fixed in one, like hiring a person for 1 year. We're not going to fix all of our problems in 1 year, and then
Is that CSO going to fix all of our problems?
well, I think it's going to help quite a bit as far as
Here's a better example, and I think this is where you're headed, and I agree, is that, say we raise taxes 100 grand for sidewalk improvement. And so each year we get better and better and better on our sidewalks. Well, when does that $100,000 go away? That's what your point is, and I agree. There should be a finite, if you're hiring somebody because the city is getting bigger, or i.e. we finish Barker Park and we need to hire another person to mow, that's in perpetuity. That's not something that we can let go of in a year or two. Now, as the city gets bigger, there's more evidence, there's more crossing guard. All the CSO's responsibilities aren't going to go down. In fact, the chief wanted to. And so that is one of those things that you kind of like, we're actually making a compromise by. So, but then this has been 2 years in a row. Anyway.
So if we need this CSO, how have we functioned up to this point without the CSO?
Ignoring things.
Okay, so what things are being ignored that they're gonna solve?
Code
Code
enforcement,
violations all over the city.
animal control,
This person
evidence stuff.
definitely should be hired outside of North Ogden. Cause they're gonna make every enemy in North Ogden do their job.
Honestly, they're one of the, yeah, but at the same time, those are the people that are most
Sure.
needed.
Yeah.
And that's why we have this other committee too, which two people volunteered to be helping priority, because usually for CSO stuff, in fact, the council said fire life safety, concentrate on those for now. And then also all the other stuff has been, and I think the chiefs have said this, is that they drive past 10 code violations to get to the one that's most important. Do we want to have a city that is covered in these signs all over the place, or do we want that to be enforced?
Yeah.
So all of these little things that are not fire life safety, that are just been kind of pushed to the side because we don't have time or effort. Yeah, I think the point is that at a certain point in time, I'm pushing for that because that is something.
Sure.
But at the same time, you have to prioritize still and have input from the citizens, because every council person has their little nuance or pet peeve, if you want to say it. But anyway, sorry.
Okay, I mean, my whole point is, this is just growing government. That's all it is. And I don't support that. Okay, sorry, Mike, back to Peter, Mike.
Well,
But on this same topic, I think law enforcement, your police officers are doing some of the enforcement that position would do otherwise, aren't they?
Yeah, that's true.
So, so does that free up the officers so we don't need to hire an officer as soon?
Yeah, that's why they didn't ask for an officer in this.
So,
okay.
so there is a give and
and a
take.
CSO is cheaper than a patrol officer.
Probably half.
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of it is just we're trying to comply with the new laws. They're telling us that if we look at our budget and we find that there's a need that we've got to tie it out.
Question.
No, not a question, just a comment. As the city grows, because we are growing, the government, the entity that governs and takes care of the city is naturally going to grow. You can't run a city of 10,000 with the same staff, keep that staffing where it is, and then grow the city to 22,000 and expect that same number of people to mow all the lawns, take care of all the roads, do all the code enforcement, all of those things. Same number of people simply can't do twice the number of things that need to be done. So yes, you can word it and say we're growing government, but we're a growing city. We're not a stagnant city. We're growing. The needs that have to be addressed, the number of code violations that are promulgating across the city continue to grow. So let's say that, on any given month, we have 1,000, 1,500 code violations out there that need to be addressed. Not just, your grass is 3.5 inches and it needs to be 3 inches, but serious. You've got to, I can take you to several homes that have basically turned into scrap yards with abandoned vehicles and just, it's crap. Nobody should have to live next to that. And we have ordinances in our city that you can't do that. But we're not addressing that as a city from a code violation because we don't have the staff to do it. That is the city's responsibility to enforce that. So we've got 1,500 of them. We had one CSO person and they're able to get to 20 a week. So in 52 weeks, they address.
Seriously, only 20 a week?
I'm just throwing out a number.
He was just
I'm
giving
just-
an example.
I'll do 20 in a day, but I live in North
Well,
Ogden. I'm not
you
gonna
could,
piss
but
off my
with all
neighbors.
of the evidentiary documentation that you have to do, you can't just go and say you're in violation. You gotta take pictures. You have to give them a chance. There's a lot that goes into each individual code violation it takes hours to document and to enforce a single code violation. It isn't just take a picture, you're in violation, tack the ticket to the door and you're off. It's much more involved than that from a time standpoint. But if we've got 1,500 right now and a code enforcement person in knowing that every day there will be somebody else that's now in violation somewhere, it just keeps adding and adding and adding. What we're doing is we're simply shrinking the number of cases that we're not getting to. We're not even close to catching up and making sure that all of the fire, life, and safety code infractions are being addressed because we don't have the staff. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
We're growing government. The government is still smaller than it would be ideally if we were going to enforce the ordinances that we have. Now, the option is that we go in and we just simply get rid of those ordinances. If we don't want the staff to enforce those ordinances, because my question for as long as I was on council was, if we're going to have an ordinance, but we're not going to enforce it, we're not even going to try. What's the point of having the ordinance?
Agreed, yeah.
If you can have a scrap yard in the middle of in the middle of multi-million-dollar homes up there, and I decide I'm going to buy a lot of scrap cars on it, and nobody's going to say anything, and there is no longer an ordinance, what kind of city would this turn into in a heartbeat?
And then you have to hire more police because everyone's beating the crap out of their neighbors. And
Well, it snowballs. So a lot of
Right.
it comes down to the council from a philosophical standpoint saying, what kind of community do we want to have? And what does it take? Because unfortunately, we can't count on every one of our neighbors to be good neighbors. We simply can't.
Long time.
You and I can't enforce it because then we end up in jail. Right? 'Cause you enforce things the way I do. We end up in jail. So there has to be that government entity that comes into that neighbor with the scrapyard next to your $1 million home and says, you can't do this. And they thumb their nose at them, and the government comes back in and says, you can't do this. Then the government comes in with bulldozers and cleans everything up, puts a lien on the house. You feel better because now your neighborhood isn't a junkyard. But it is growing government, but it's not growing government for the sake of growing government.
And if they had just do
And
code
we'll
enforcement,
continue to
that'd be even
agree to
better.
disagree.
But,
What's that?
We'll continue to agree to disagree.
Agreed.
but they're only, but if that's their only job, that'd be great, but it's not. They also do animal control, they also do crossing
Evidence.
guards, the evidence, and the front desk. So there's like 5 or 6, I'm missing 6, but yeah, so they're all over the place, and that's the problem is that they're stretched. And that's because we've delayed 10 plus years to addressing the situation. So that's the problem is that we're trying to, I always use the Coke machine because you got to rock that thing back and forth to get it over. And that's what we're trying to do is make the city correct as opposed to just let her go. You know, if you don't have a firm handle on the steering wheel, it goes wherever it wants. Same thing with zoning. I mean, we've been all over the map on this, but and the spending, same thing. If you don't actively manage your long-term potential, you're going to be stuck, and all of a sudden you're going to be a crappy city because you haven't planned for growth. And it might be growth for the government, and I don't disagree that that's a horrible thing to think about. But at the same time, if you have double the people, not double the staff, but you're going to have more than a couple, then you got to think about for the long-term plan. Anyway,
Sorry, Peter, back to you.
No, look, you've got some time to discuss this. I mean, you've talked about it already a little bit.
It's next week. We have plenty of time.
Well, we could still change it.
I know.
So up until I think it's the middle of when the budget's passed in June. So, go ahead and help me. Well, go back just one more. Sales taxes. I did want to touch on that a little bit.
On the property tax, what we state on the budget document though exceeds what's on your impact statement.
What's on the impact statement?
The impact statement is 149,854 and we're at 239.
Oh, so that extra amount is what we call growth. So we get taxes just in terms of like growing the city. It's not based
So
upon rate.
It's houses that weren't
The
there
new
last year that they are
We
now.
get new money because.
Yeah,
It's
the new home.
based off of 1 January, and we didn't have it last year, but now we have it this year.
So then how do you tie it out? I mean, if your
We're only-
impact statement says you only need the 150 and you're asking for 239,
That's
why?
what's needed from an increase is the 150.
Yeah, we're only asking for the rate. So it's not the overall property tax increase, it's the rate increase piece. of it.
Okay, that'd be something good to put on this statement that you're gonna issue, so everybody
Okay.
understands
So
that.
the one thing I did have is that when you're
Yeah.
setting aside the isolations of the different things, that equates to 158. And I was like, but small error, but I think.
Well, so yeah, because part of it has to do with when you add these positions in and the software, it's actually more.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah,
Just tying it out. So yeah, that answers your.
okay, so the next one, we are looking at sales tax, so we're trying to tag it to a yearly sort of CPI. I know we went through and talked about this at city council meeting.
And that was an email that we were going back and forth.
Yeah,
But I think the biggest thing is that it has to be tied to something real. And so lots of times we were basing it off of a guess that we did, guess of a guess. And it's like, it made my eye flicker. So if we can come up with something great, I mean, but the CPI, I mean, is it year over year? Is it based on a month? Is it based on?
so it's based upon a yearly amount.
Right.
is what
But
we're
I'm just
looking at.
saying that we can pick so many different
Yeah,
things.
correct.
And it's just, it's a guess.
And that's what we want to do. I mean, personally, I'm kind of we've had this discussion. I want to just keep it flat and then be surprised when we have more. But I
But
also,
playing devil's advocate, then why not keep everything else flat? I mean, it doesn't,
because sales tax is because everything else, like property tax is stable. We can predict it, where sales tax is not. That's the difference.
but you know you've got additional revenue you'll glean from new businesses coming in.
Maybe.
Sales tax.
But if we have a recession, we won't. That's my whole point.
Because it's always a crapshoot, because I swear we get more from Amazon than we
Yeah.
get any other thing, but that's just.
And that's the whole, we spend, I mean, I went down to staff training in St. George, and we had several meetings on trying to predict the economy, because sales tax is the number one thing in our budget, and it's also the most volatile.
It is.
It can swing $500,000 one way or the other.
But kind of like we talked last year and Phil brought up, what's your 5%, your 10% clawback if you go into a recession? So if you go into a recession, you're not gonna leave everything status quo.
No, in fact, if we do, we kind of have contingencies as to what we'll do. But, so I'm trying to have a balance here with the understanding that, if you're to look at economists today and look at what people are predicting today, that one measure is to look at the CPI. So
Yeah,
that's,
'cause he's trying to balance the flat versus Pulver's
I know.
crazy number.
I know.
Because I was basing it off of real data that shows
year over
trend
year.
line.
Yeah,
year
you're
over
looking,
year.
you're looking at year over year. I think that's an appropriate way to
Even if
do
you
it.
take out the high points of post-COVID, you
Yeah,
still have 6%. So it's kind of like,
yeah, I'm trying to balance a little bit. So,
So you moved the non-governmental number though, up into the sales tax?
so what that is, and that's just a reclassification, because number one, accounting wise, it should be in the revenue. It's an offset cost. So essentially what it is, when we get the sales taxes from the state, sorry. I get confused. I worked in a county, so it's all sometimes
it comes
get
from
mixed up.
somewhere.
So they give us a gross amount that they allocate to us, but then they claw back some of it to pay for certain things like the animal shelter. So we don't get it in cash basis. They keep it back. That's just, it's a way for us to look at it, but I wanted to put it right next to the sales tax number instead of having it all the way down in the expenditure line, so that you can look at
So
it.
in that 3% growth that you've got, is that in there? Is that 3%, or is that number that you moved up in that 3% growth?
I'm already going to adjust it down to 130. So if you look up on the screen, 150 was too high.
Oh,
So we're going to move it down. And
Something
then,
else to consider on sales tax, because of the way sales tax, what is it, 7.8? Isn't that what we are? something like that. So on $1 million, $1 million in new sales, which is a lot of new sales, right? How much is that in sales tax? $78,000. We get less than half of that at the city. Between, by the time the state gives us our portion and then we have the population portion, we get less than half. So for every $1 million in new sales, new businesses, we're getting less than $40,000 in sales tax. So you would have to have, I mean, to make up this 150, let's make it easy math for 160 at 40,000 for every million, right?
Yeah.
We've got to have $4 to $5 million in new sales just to get that 150,000 this year. And then there would have to be, because it's ongoing costs, the CSO and, those things, they're not one-time expenditures. So we would then have to next year hope that we got another $4.5 to $5 million worth of new
And that's not reality.
sales. No, not in a community like ours. Now, if you're Riverdale and you have Trader Joe's that shows up, or you're Pleasant View and you have Chick-fil-A that shows up, those businesses are going to give you $1 million in sales in a year. And they might grow a little bit more, but that initial kick is going to be, but Chick-fil-A, if it does $1 million for Pleasant View this year, it's 40 grand. It's a drop in the bucket what you actually get because of what the state takes and what gets allocated out to other cities. It's not the big windfall that it might feel like.
And some businesses generate more sales tax than others.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, just because you get a building there and they sell something isn't a big increase.
100%.
So, before I keep going, I think probably the best way to deal with like your questions as I go through, you had some responses and I haven't had a chance to look at your responses. But as we go through here, if you can bring that up as we're going through, that way we can kind of catch, you said stuff in green, right?
Yep.
So go to so the last piece, it was just the other pieces of the taxes were budgeted flat or average just because I didn't see a clear trend one way or the other. And so we just sort of left it.
And you're right, I mean, new houses are gonna generate, but again, it's a percentage on a percentage, so it's kind of just a percentage anyway. But is it big enough to jump it a significant amount? I don't know. Same thing. That's the hard part, is guessing when that revenue is gonna hit too.
Correct. Go to the next slide there.
Just before you leave that sales tax thing, a thought that, that's been brought up before that I would think would be worth consideration from council. There are organizations that do some of their budgeting based on arrears. So maybe something to consider for council is that on this sales tax thing, instead of trying to guess what this coming year's increase is going to be, let's leave it flat for a year and for 1 year.
That's scary though.
You have to bite the bullet for 1 year. But then let's say that we keep it flat and we end up with 350,000 more than what's flat. That's next year's budget.
Yeah.
Sales tax I know, Chris, but I mean, if you're wanting more control, which is something that you talk about a lot, and having a solid fixed number. If you go 1 year in arrears and you say, okay, 1 year we're not gonna raise it. And whatever we get extra, like say the 3.3% comes in this year, and it's whatever, couple $100,000 worth, that gets earmarked for next year. Next year, we take our tax rate, whatever the tax was this year, and we're gonna assume that it stays flat. Again, so next year we're flat, and we add in last year's overage. And that makes up our this year's sales tax number.
Problem is that whatever that hit is gonna be a property tax increase, more than likely. Because if you say everything's flat.
You could go 1 year. Well, you could go 1 year. I mean, like last year, right? We didn't get the property tax increase. We got virtually no sales tax increase, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is the risk of this? Why are we not doing this?
Why are we not flat
just an
taxing
idea.
it? It's because
Going in arrears.
it's called inflation. What do you mean arrears?
No, I'm not saying stay flat every year. I'm not
It's a
saying that. I'm
one-time.
saying
You're
so
basing
this
it off
year,
last year's numbers.
we're not going to do a 3.3 increase and we get 5 million in sales tax. We get 5.3 million in sales tax. Okay?
Mhm.
We only budgeted 5 million because we didn't do the 3.3. We budgeted 5, it came in at 5.3. Next year's base would be the 5.3. But the extra 300,000 that we didn't budget, that we didn't guess on for this year gets rolled to the next year. So next year we budget, last year's sales tax was $5.3 million. So we're going to budget 5.3 million for the next year. And then we're going to add in the 300,000 extra that we got in the arrears. And let's say the year after that, sales tax goes to 5.5, right? We had another $200,000 surplus. So that second year, now the base is 5.5 because we know that's what we got last year. We've got the 5.5 and we add the 200,000 in that we got in the arrears. And that way we always know we're going to get at least what we got last year unless something crazy's happened. And the extra, rather than guessing, is it 3.3? Is it 7%? Is it 9%? We just take what we had and we add it to the base. And that's our sales tax budget for the year.
So you budget the actual, not the anticipated.
Well, you budget the
Well,
past.
but yeah,
Well,
you're budgeting the
that's
past.
actual.
The problem, I see what you're saying. I think the problem is when it comes down to having to bite that is going to be a hard bite because it's going to be, nothing goes up. So that's going to be a 0 year for everything.
You'd almost have to do 2 years too.
But that's what happened last year.
Because we don't know our actuals.
Because we didn't do things. So we didn't do things that we normally do this year so that we made the budget.
Right.
Now, if you do that every year, that means that you're not doing things you should be doing every year, which makes no sense. So if we're not going to get training, because they skip training, so you have to be certified in certain things, in certain jobs in the city, or you can't do the job, or you're not legally required to do the job. So if we skip those every year, then we're going to be not doing legal things. So my point is that there's certain things that I think we need to be careful about. I don't disagree with that. I think that we need to carefully look at that one. Because I'd rather
suggesting is that it's
because-
worth investigating.
I think that's
Because
an
the-
absolutely reasonable thought.
Well, here's a better reasonable thought, is that every year so far that I've looked at, we've never been negative at the end of the audit year. If you go back at the audits and you re-look and see what you had, was it a net positive or negative at the end of the audit year? It's never been negative that I could find. So what I'm saying is that why are we being so conservative with a revenue projection when you know at the end of the year that you're more than likely to be positive? Like 2 years ago, when we just closed that audit report, we had 500K. And that was in a year that we raised taxes. So that's the thing I'm trying to avoid in the future, is to say, why are we pushing such a negative thing? And I feel like I know what you're saying, but I think at the same time, we need to go back and look, why are we being conservative on our revenue stuff when we know large majority of it is going to be, we're going to make it up anyways. So it's sort of the same thing you're talking about, but I'm kind of going in a forward sense instead of a backward sense.
Well, and the reason I brought it up is because there are individuals who have pulled their hair out, Chris, because sales tax isn't predictable.
Yeah.
And it's 2 months in arrears, and it's the most difficult metric to predict and the most critical metric that we have in our budget. This adds, in my mind, and I'm not a numbers whiz, agree. It gives a little bit more security, a little more finality in the number. We know we're going to get at least what we got last year in sales tax. And if that's our base budget and we add the surplus that we came from last year, then we have it for next year. I mean, I know organizations that budget 3 years in arrears.
So I'm going to.
What you get in
I
1980
don't know if you can either.
is
So
the
what I
budget
was
in
gonna-
1983.
I was gonna say, why don't we just put a pin in it, because I'm willing to look at it.
I'll look at it.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
In fact,
but
and I think that it
that's
might
what
have to
this
go
committee
2 years
is
because you don't
throwing out
know
new ideas.
what you're gonna land. The problem is we're always trying to guess what the
Six-
future's gonna
And we're
be.
trying to budget 6 months before something is due.
And every year I've been doing this for the last 4 years, we're looking at storm clouds on the horizon. And then guess what happens?
No storm.
No storm happens, or thing, inflation happens or a pandemic happens. When I was doing pandemic, when I was doing budgets during the pandemic, the first year I was doing it, we thought we were gonna go into a depression, and then it flipped around. So, but if you do it in arrears, I don't mind taking a look at it and seeing how that would work. If that makes sense.
It
Put some
won't,
staff time
it
into
won't
it.
be, yeah. Don't get too crazy on it, but I think,
I know.
because the other way is to over, and then at the end of the year, anyway, there's a bunch of stuff, so, okay.
Okay.
It's almost worthwhile.
There you go.
All right.
There's your homework.
Hopefully won't take too much time on the rest of it. Because those two big things are super important. So, so just to kind of run through our other general fund review, there's not a lot of change with licenses and permits. Intergovernmental, we have a slight increase because of state roads fund, just sort of a prediction there. We are down a resource officer, I believe, for Weaver schools. So that's why they pay us. So that's why that's down there. Charges for services are flat. There's a slight increase for excavation permits. Fines and forfeitures, we're just sort of leveling up a little bit. Miscellaneous, one of the things, if you're looking at our budget this year, we got to make some adjustments. We put our vehicle sales and purchases in the wrong fund. So we got to move them back over to the right fund. So it's going to throw off. If you're trying to look at it and go, why are we down $600,000? That's why. So I went ahead and pulled all of that out.
Ask the question.
Yeah, I went ahead and pulled all that out for you on this point. Once you take all of that out and you make those adjustments, it's not that much of a difference.
Because you asked when motor pool was up 33.
In fact, the big difference is that Verizon
Because if
tower.
you take that out,
That's what's going to
they're
change
literally
our
like less
revenue and
than
make it go
1%.
up a little bit. We're renting a tower to Verizon that will cause that budget to increase a little bit. So
Is that what they were doing the drilling for
And
up by the equestrian area?
I think that's just fiber.
Oh,
Yeah, they haven't even started up there yet. They might have done
somebody
some.
was drilling.
They were doing some core
vertical.
samples. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. They were doing some core
That's
samples.
for the tower.
Mhm.
That's where it's going.
Mhm.
next slide, we've got our investments. I'll just kind of give a high level
What I got a quick question on the rent. What
Okay.
what are we renting?
a Verizon tower.
So that 20,000.
Yeah,
So we had nothing for this year.
Correct.
Prior years were 9,500 and 8,500.
yeah. And I
What
don't know
have we-
what those little things are for, but
And if we do sell versus rent that last house on Washington, that goes into a different fund. We don't like that anyways.
excuse me.
Yeah, so that's a whole different one.
So the tower is 20,000 a year.
Yes.
Yes.
But we've got some other small things that dropped off and
Yeah.
we just have the tower.
Yeah, and I don't, for time's sake, I don't want to get in, if it's too small, I don't want to, you can spend too much time looking at $9,000, but, I also want to try to answer your questions. On the next one, on investments, last year's budget on investments, we just kind of threw a number on there. We didn't really know. And we also didn't include the interest on the enterprise fund. It just didn't get put into the budget. So this year we're making sure that we've kind of caught that and swept it up correctly. I've done a big, huge analysis on how we allocate our investments. It should be based upon the cash balances in each fund. So I'm hoping I have that sort of corrected versus
Yeah,
what we
I
had
don't
in
think we showed
26.
interest income on anything.
Nope, we didn't. It was left off.
So what do you think that pickup is for this year?
Well, I've got it on there, but overall, are you talking about overall?
Yeah.
So the PTIF, that was spread out, peanut butter spread out, is that what you're talking about or something different?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Our investments. Next one's contributions. Actually, after going through that, we left about 30 grand out of there that I put back in. So that will, based on grants and donations that we had in last year, we have it in the expenditure side. If you're going to spend it, it's based upon if you have the donation, you can spend it. If you don't have the donation, you can't spend it. So it's a matching principle there.
Did we ever find out if Pleasant View was not gonna continue contributing? I sent an email to John, I don't know.
For the,
Senior Center.
oh,
I hadn't heard that.
Okay. Cause that
You
that
heard
was
that?
in their minutes that they were disallowing. I was like, what? Or it expired.
Oh, okay.
In their budget, it said expires yada yada. I was like, well, that's interesting. Anyway.
Yeah,
the
I
last
haven't heard
piece of
that.
this is the fund balance. That's essentially pulling overages from arrears. It's all gonna be based upon capital. So it gets transferred to the capital budget. And that's what you see there.
Can you go back to
And-
contributions just a second?
Mhm.
Is that supposed to be 10,000, that second?
Sorry. Yes, 10,000, not
Okay.
$10.
Okay, cause I was gonna
We're
say, I
getting
thought we're not
really
doing the
cheap
building.
Well,
Sorry.
It's okay.
It's just something, as I went through it today, I caught it. I decided I put it back in the budget. Go to the next slide.
I am awake over here.
Okay.
You got it.
At a very high level, our general fund expenditures, we'll walk through this. This might take up a little bit of our time. Questions on salaries and wages. We did market study on those. And so what we put in there are the quantitative amounts. And we put those in there. We didn't have time to go through. We're going to go through individually, and we're going to sort of drill that down to make sure that we've got
To match what the council, because the council said 3 to 8
yeah.
to start.
And I think,
Right.
yeah, that's, and the overall thing is, my biggest concern is that there was a flat fee that everybody got, didn't matter if you were the best and or the, the best of the one and the one that just did his job, day in, day out. Is there any benefit to actually doing more and, being a better benefit to the city?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, thankfully. And so that was my one worry is that like in the military, best captain and the worst captain got the same pay increase,
Yeah.
which drove me nuts.
We do.
Because-
Yeah, we do not
So-
do that.
Right.
Should
And
be
so
merit.
it's merit.
Merit-based.
Yeah, that's our whole thing is based on merit.
Yeah.
So
And
we
that's the
don't
thing
have-
that kind of made me much more appreciative of how the system that they're running. And the only downside would be is there a, the base maybe should be lower, not base, the minimum
The
amount
minimum.
maybe should be lower depending.
And there are occasions where if you get put on a performance plan,
Mhm.
certain things like that, you can go below that, the 3 to 8 that we were talking about. That's just for
So if you
there
got
are-
somebody on a PIP, then you're working to move them along or, hopefully
Yeah,
improve them or
or
move
at
them
least,
along.
yeah.
Or moving along. Yeah.
So, yeah, and because that's the biggest thing, was it's 50-something% of the overall budget is salaries and benefits.
Yeah.
Can't remember what that is. But
So
any percentage up or down is gonna tremendously affect what the overall budget, how it works.
So this is still a working document on that basis. What we did was we took the discussion that John had with you guys on salaries and wages. We plugged the numbers in. In some cases, it looks a little high. We're gonna go through and look at that and make sure that gets balanced out better.
Yeah, we'll clean that one up. So
Um,
that's, to your point, when you asked about some departments seeing like a 14%, like that will all get washed when we clean that all up. Cause we just put what the study said into the file so that we could get going.
And then you're refining.
Yeah, we'll refine all that back to kind of where the council caps it or doesn't.
And we gotta be very careful because we're trying to also be sensitive to individuals. Anyway, so as we work together, we have to,
On that, not wanting to divulge,
right,
it's all visible on Transparent Utah though,
it is. It is.
whether you like it or not. It's
No,
out
But
there.
as we're
We have
talking
some-
about like
Yeah.
increases and stuff, that's certainly not visible.
No,
And we don't want that out there until that's sort of set in stone. So benefits are generally up 8%. That's based upon our medical health insurance. So you'll see that sort of kind of playing out. It won't be always that way because we're looking at individual employees. Some employees all of a sudden go on a family plan. Now it's more expensive. Or some employees don't take our health benefits at all. We take it off. And so individually, you might see some departments fluctuate a little bit, but generally overall, it will go up about that much. We do have 2 new departments that we're putting in our budget: emergency services and amphitheater. I'll drill into those just a little bit. Just you see those in there. We're trying to isolate costs better. That's the whole point of having new departments, is to see.
Yeah, and I think that's what you had a couple comments, and I did too. And like,
Yeah,
what is this? I'm like, oh, that's emergency. Yeah, the headers were.
And the reason why it's in that department is because Casey's in the finance department, so it's easier to keep track because he's already in the finance department and in the.
It's not new expenditures. It's just
Allocation.
reallocation of existing expenditures.
can you create a cost line though for the wage in those 2 new categories?
I have it in there.
Because it's not in the amphitheater.
It's not on the. It's right, and that one's
I mean, it's an unknown, but
that one.
project something.
We might put it in. We're still kind of. I've had several discussions today about that. We do have an estimate. It's about $30,000, so we might put that in there so it's more transparent. We're still kind of working on that. So
That creates a position. I mean, the emergency response thing is a position. The amphitheater person, I don't know what you want to call them, that is something that we're developing. So I don't know if I would technically want to make a quote position out of it yet, when it's someone that loves doing theater is doing a lot of the work. Am I making sense? That's the one thing I worry about, is that if all of a sudden you start making a position out of something that it comes out of nothing, then, you know, and in my opinion, we're still, the amphitheater is at this baby state right now, that we're doing something and we're trying to figure out what it's going to cost, almost like creating the aquatic center. You want to know what your fees are, what your overhead is, so that you know if you're making money or not. You know, same things. People are like, just bulldoze the thing and we'll be done. Well,
So do we have a means to track coding on wages and those type of things to?
yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And so it's going to happen eventually. If it doesn't happen this year, it'll be in there, because we have to cost principles. It just makes sense. We want to know what it costs to provide the service. And even if it doesn't make it back itself, at least it can hopefully offset the cost of having the thing up there.
I never want to say offset, because that's not the responsibility of the amphitheater, but it is nice to know so that we can kind of say, you know.
But you have the assets, you might as well use
Yes.
that asset.
Correct.
Have it make you some money.
We would like it to be something that actually brings some revenue to the city.
How much did it make last year? Not a lot, right?
About 20,000.
Which was technically more than cool. But anyway, moving on.
Hitting 2 nerves in one sentence.
I know.
The next one has been asked about several meetings.
Oh, sorry. One more thing. Are we
go back to
picking a name or a spelling of amphitheater? I'm just kidding. Keep moving.
Amphitheater or
I misspell it.
No, it's, you can say R-E or E-R.
So this sheet here, what this sheet is for you to see, this is our admin offset schedule. And this has been asked about, so I'm giving it to you here. The bottom line is we're about $1.6 million that our general fund charges our enterprise funds for services to our enterprise funds. And that's on the basis of all of the indirect support costs, my time, Dave's time, John's time. I was in the process of refining the percentages and how you allocate it out on the basis of time and effort. And I'm trying to get a more quantitative kind of foundation, but I'm out of runway for the tentative budget. So this will probably change before the end, but it won't change it'll still be $1.6 million. It's just a matter of where it goes.
The way it's coded time, other
Pardon me?
than just have somebody on their time card, they've worked 40 hours a week.
No, it's all coded.
But is it all broken out? Cause you
Mhm.
guys do a great job having people cross over and do different
So you actually have
jobs.
a different JN for.
Well, a lot of it's, so if you're salary, that makes it difficult. But what we're trying,
Right,
But no, but like
but-
our guys, yeah, like
like the
snow
street guys
plowing,
doing
Terry
parks
Day,
and-
this, yeah, like not, I shouldn't say all of it's coded, but there's a lot of things that are specifically coded for what they're, whatever task they're doing.
yeah.
So who does that? The employee, or does their supervisor break it out? when
No, so
pay goes-
it's with the software mostly. So like if the guy, if say the guy's he had a snow plow tonight from midnight to 6, he clocks in, it classifies that, and then he specifies where it
Okay,
came
so
from
you're-
for snow plowing, and
Okay,
it accounts for all of that in
Yeah.
the snow plowing budget.
okay.
What are the numbers to the far right?
What do you mean the far right?
Far right, what are these numbers?
Oh, that's just total. Yeah. Yeah, so you can see those are the personnel. So about $1 million in personnel costs and about roughly $500,000 in other things. I do want to say, so one of the things we're looking at basing it on is number of employees per fund, or per fund, revenue per fund, expenditures per fund. With the recorder's office, how many contracts go through that are related to the enterprise funds versus the operating fund? So those are the pieces that I'm looking at to try to like drill down, because it's not always a function of like how you code your time. We're not always that granular. Like for someone to say, well, I'm going to work on the water fund for an hour. It makes more sense just to pay them out of their departmental fund, but look at it over a year and go, okay, well, but 80% of the time your contracts are in the general fund, the rest are in the, so.
And that is how, like, so, yeah, so not all departments are like that, and that's a perfect example.
That was just an
The
example.
recorder's office
Yeah.
doesn't get on the time clock and say, okay, I'm gonna go work on the water for an hour, like.
Yeah. So that's the offsets. The last part is just on the budget. You'll see transfers. We have 650,000 to capital, 450 again. Didn't put the K on there. Sorry. There's for roads, out of the general fund. We have 572,000 that goes over to pay for the debt on the new building, police office over there, and then we transfer 31,000 for cherry days.
Is that 572 an amortization?
It's based upon the principal and the interest payment that we pay for. That will adjust year over year.
Okay.
In fact, I might tweak that a little bit, because I want to look at the amortization schedule, because I don't think it's the same every year.
Yeah, because it has
Yeah,
to
it shouldn't.
increase
Because of the bond,
because of the
right?
tranches.
Yes.
Yeah,
So and I think, I don't know if I sent that to you, but that one memo that the mayor sent me, because I was like, want something that says what we're going to be paying out through the whole year for the.
and we could just decide to level it out and just transfer it over there and collect a fund balance, and then, that's.
Because some of that, it's not noted there, but the impact fee goes into that as well to pay off the loan
Yeah, there's
itself. So
there's about 31,000, I think, of impact fees that go into that as well.
yeah, there's an error there, but yeah.
Oh, for
It says 30 and it's supposed to be 30.
I fixed that.
Did you?
I did.
Mixed.
All right, go to the next slide. Just some highlights. The council budgets, it's gone down largely because of elections. We've talked about the emergency management department. It's really just reclassified from other departments. The non-departmental budget is up 5% when you adjust for everything. We did some things related to personal related. We're trying to put a bunch of whenever somebody retires or like leaves, and you do all these payouts of like leave time, you didn't want it to impact the budget, so we sort of put a lump in the non-departmental there, so that kind of is a reclass as well. And then our insurance is probably the biggest piece of this.
And that's a guess, because we don't know for sure.
Correct.
Correct.
And we're
Yeah, it's just
crossing our
where-
fingers, it might go down.
It's a
little bit.
contingency.
Yeah.
We may not use it.
And insurance is on a
So-
calendar year, so it's
You don't get
kind
that
of,
till October.
we don't hear about October yet. True.
And then our building and grounds changed quite a bit because we restructured the offset fee to other departments. So we're taking a lot out of that, and it just, we don't have any salaries in there, so it didn't make sense why it was so high. I put it back into public works. That's why you see the difference.
And a lot of this, I think, and what I was looking at, is Peter's way of doing, it, which Peter knows what Peter's way is.
Yeah.
So,
it should follow this sheet though. So
Yeah.
at least
correct. No, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
the overall structure of this, where you move from one thing to the other, because Jamie liked it this way, but Peter likes it this way. Don't matter. It's just reclassification and moving stuff around, which makes Pulver try to figure out, where did this go again? So.
I mean, the idea
But
that we
it's
have a
just
building
being-
and grounds department
Yeah.
or a public works, for example, like we have a streets department, and the streets department pays for Dave and it pays for Tyrell, I believe.
Right.
And it could be out of the public works department, but we decided to put it in the streets department. So, but they do a lot of work that's not streets related. So, we're trying to just capture it differently. Next slide. Police, the big change there was up 7%. But that's when we're going to probably take a little stronger look at.
Yeah, I think that will be adjusted a little bit
Yeah. Planning.
Adjusted which way?
down.
Yeah. Planning, Placer AI, we took it in, we pulled it out, we took it in, we pulled it out. It's $30,000. Scott's kind of like, it's been nice, it's been fun to use. It's given us some details that are very useful for market studies, market research. So it's still kind of up in the air on that one.
If you do it, it'll go in planning.
Yeah. Building inspections down. We're going to be down one part-time employee. That's why that one's gone down. Public safety. Again, this is
On that one, you lost that person a while back and you decided not to bring a new one on just because things have backed down a little bit, or?
They've got new back to one of the things I think I kind of like is they've got some new technologies, some new pieces of software. It's helped them do some of the work a little more efficiently. And so this is a gentleman that's retired, we've kept on for a while. And because he's got some institutional knowledge and he likes to work, and he's now ready to final retire, I guess. And they used to have 3 people in the department. They've gone down to 2.
Yeah, a lot of technologies kind of help that. We don't have to have somebody coming in and helping them fill out their stuff. That a lot of that stuff is automatic now.
I saw that. Bluebeam.
Yeah.
This is one of these.
That's
one of these kind
software
of-
you're
Yeah, that's
talking about.
one of them. Yeah.
This is one of those sort of like policy discussions that I think about all the time in terms of like, there's a lot of new technology out there, a lot of AI technology that you can employ to help do things more efficiently, more effectively. In the end of all of that sort of churn, there might be an opportunity to, shrink costs because you're not having to employ so many people. But the problem with that is you have to ramp up to ramp down, if that makes sense. And that sort of weighing the differences with what new technology can bring versus the benefits can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge. So, and then the other one is that public safety CSO. That's the one that's tied to the property tax increase, which we've already talked about.
What's the reality with CSO? If we're going to start enforcing codes and fines, what is the expected return on all these fines and ordinance and blah, blah? Are we going to get fines from people? Is it just going to be a big nightmare? What's the thought on that? Does that make sense?
I think the bigger hope is that people respond and take care of it so you don't have to fine.
I mean, yeah, that is our goal.
That's the expectation.
Yeah,
Then, is just okay.
That we'll get more compliance because
Okay.
we have more people out there, to try to get, enforced, so they are getting more compliance.
Okay.
I mean, that is our goal, absolutely. It's not to go out and, hey, by hiring you, we're gonna have you bring in $100,000 in revenue.
That never happened,
Yeah,
and it's gonna be
right,
offset by the judicial costs anyway.
Right.
But I think the bottom line for what you're talking about is education. Because to me, I'd rather have people educated, because a lot of the comments online are uneducated because they don't understand or don't care to understand how that's gonna work. Because the water thing, people are so confused about, why is the city pushing this water thing, but then they're building all these houses? Well, that's two different things. One is the fact that it's secondary water, not culinary water. So they it's not wrapped around their head correctly in the fact that we're talking about two different things. And that's the same thing with code enforcement. There's a lot of things that just go by the wayside. I have a neighbor that wanted to build a ginormous wall. I'm like, have you got this engineered? Why do I need to engineer it? I'm just going to do it. And I'm like, ooh, that's fine.
So how is the education going to take place? And is the CSO going to be online?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be that in person with the, with the additional CSO going and saying, hey, I don't know if you knew this, but these are our rules and these are the way.
Because it's going to be I keep using this word, and the mayor laughs at me every time. It's trying to get away from the snitch thing, because that pits neighbor against neighbor. I'd rather have the city take charge of it. It's not my responsibility to rat out somebody in my neighborhood. Is that a good neighbor, or is that anyway? That's I want to get away from that. I just said, well.
The next one I wanted to point out was streets. Again, we have that large vehicle expenditure in there that's going to be moved to another fund. So that I had to do some finagling in there so you could see the comparisons better. When I pulled that out, we were up 12%, and I dug a little deeper, and we're doing some more parking lot maintenance. So that's going to sometimes adjust.
It is, but I think that you had 270, 280 in there for parking lot. Wasn't that for the park? Resurface, you were gonna redo the one we went and visited.
Correct.
I think you were gonna pull that one up and put it back down.
Yeah, I thought we did it.
And
We did
We did some of them.
But that should fall in your capital, not in.
That's what I was.
If they're just doing slurry seal, we kept it in streets, but if they're restructuring it, and we'll double check on that. I know we've already talked about it, but it's something we can take a look at since it's come up again, just to make sure it's in the right.
Yeah, because if we say that there's an expenditure and it's a large expenditure, blah blah blah, but if it's offset by something that was planned in capital, like the playground equipment, yeah, that's an expense, but we budgeted $2,000 or $200,000 for that for this past year, whatever, and so technically that's not a massive increase that's going to impact everybody. It's the fact that we planned for it already from capital, and it comes back to general fund as something like that. So I just and the Whipshaw
Streets is one of those that does it's. I would like it in its own fund personally, because it's more like a capital fund. But something I might be exploring in the future, but it does tend to fluctuate a lot more because of those types
Kind
of
of the same thing on the streetlights. There was a big number.
Well, there was
in there
something
for
about you're doing some
upgrading.
There's it went a bit on the maintenance, I think, because you guys were going to do some electrical upgrades.
Yeah,
You're not doing the snow related to the snow plowment. Because it's a dry year or something.
yeah. Well, and some of the stuff from streets, there is some offset because, like, they have these. Hey, we have to go put all these street lights in, so we have to show that we're purchasing those things and getting all the street lights in. But there's an offset because the developer cuts us a check to pay for all those street lights, and so we have to show the expenditure on it. So that's.
But weren't there some you were gonna upgrade, retrofit to LED from the old fixtures? Or something?
But it's that's 4 that we were going to do.
Oh, I thought there was more than that.
Yeah. So yeah, there's the streets is a weird one because there's so many different offset, or it just goes up and down because it's like, if we don't get a lot of development, then we don't have to budget for a bunch of streetlights. So then it goes way down, and then
I'm gonna take another pass at this one with Dave to make sure we kind of zero it in a little bit better.
But if there is offset, I think that would be beneficial to note that, that, hey, it did go up 500 grand this year, but we had planned 400 grand. So really it's only a,
Yeah.
net of something
Right,
that the general fund overall has to
absorb.
absorb. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and on these sheets, you can put comments in here for all that kind of stuff too. That would be helpful.
Okay.
Our public works changed, well, because of our restructured offset costs related to this sheet. And then there's some other equipment asks that they didn't ask for this year, they asked for in the prior year. So when it's all said and done, it's slightly down. Community events, we had ramp grant last year we have ramp grant for lots of different things. We had it for last year, it's going to other things this year, so it's not going to be covering some of that. And then
Back
Go ahead.
on the public works, the camera that we're splitting between sewer and storm,
Yeah.
that was in as an expense line, not as a capital.
it will be, well, so the way we do sorry, Dave,
No, you're good.
the way we do our enterprise funds for transparency's sake is we do expense our capital lines, then we pull it out at the end of the year, move it over to
Cause I think
our
we had
asset line.
capital items up above that in both of those categories, listed as different capital projects or different capital expense.
Mm-hmm.
But then down below that, this is on the yellow sheet.
Yeah.
Right.
It was in as a separate line item.
So on the
So
yellow
it
sheet.
didn't look like it was gonna sweep to capital.
Okay. We can definitely look at that one.
Yeah, we'll look at it. I'm pretty sure that we're gonna capitalize those. There's sewer, so there's camera repairs, which is in
No.
maintenance.
Now there's purchase.
But if you go down
Right there,
to
purchased equipment
purchase equipment,
is.
so purchase equipment is a capital line.
So that is.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
purchase
And-
equipment
But then
is
up above it,
capitalized.
you've got capital.
Correct.
So
Well-
should they be in the same?
Well, we try to segment a capital project, which would be like a construction project
Going
project
lining.
versus like a piece of equipment that we purchase. They both get capitalized,
Okay,
but we treat them a little bit differently because I got to track equipment.
okay, it just didn't look like.
I don't have to track a building.
Well, both of those lines are capitalized.
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't have to track a building or track a sewer line, but I do have to track a camera that's going into the sewer line. I can know
yes.
where its home is. So
And on all of the assets, do we have a list by department of all the things that we've got that are being depreciated?
yes,
Because last year when we went through it, we found a bunch of stuff that should have fallen off the depreciation because we had sold it.
I'm doing that right now.
Yep.
So yesterday I pulled all the capital assets and I'm starting with motor pool and I'm making sure that we have that. And if we don't do it in-house, our CPA does it. So he goes through and looks at it and we take a stab at it. He takes a stab at it to make sure
We
that it
oughta
all gets
have that.
balanced out.
Because you've got depreciation schedules built into this as well.
We do.
So that needs to get trued up.
But what we typically find with depreciation over the years is it's fairly steady. We put in there as an estimate and then we do the true up at the end of the year with that's a B plus way to do it. There's a better way. We want to get there. But I'm just we have some issues with how we look at depreciation month over month. We've got to take a look at and do some refinements on.
Yeah, somehow,
So,
anytime you sell an asset, somebody should be going in and depleting that asset.
right. And we're actually looking at our software to help us do that. We know we can use our software. We just haven't figured out how to use our software. And so it's been done manually at the end of the year. And I'd like to do it as we go. So,
But you're doing a scrub on it.
yeah, we're working on it right now. And that hopefully will color this. If I see enough of a material difference, it's where you're going to see it really hit is in our motor pool.
Mhm.
Because motor pool depreciation is going to flow through to how we charge our general fund. Yeah. And
That's a
whereas,
big number.
yeah, so that number could swing us quite a bit. And our depreciation, whereas the depreciation in our enterprise funds is more, I think it's a little more steady. We'll see. So So back to our spreadsheet, our last thing on here is the amphitheater. We've already sort of talked about that. I did get an estimate on labor costs for 20, but then it came back at around 30. So what that helps us understand is right now we're budgeting a $11,000 kind of net return. If we have to fund a position to help us sort of manage the amphitheater, we're going to need to find another $20,000 in revenue to make that sort of work. So that's kind of given us a goal, I think, of what we've got to be looking at over.
And I actually haven't even got to talk to Peter, but I think we might be able to fix some of that because with some technologies with scanning and different things that me and Bryce have been working on, we think we're going to be able to back off some of our staffing because we have cameras there, we have technology to be able to give them a card, check themselves, let themselves in the amphitheater. We have, ways of being able to do all that instead of having a staff member up there for 5 hours, while they're having this event. So yeah, we might be able to fix some of that. We just kind of found some of that out in the last couple of days.
Do the people that rent that have to provide insurance to the city?
Yes, if it's an open.
They give us a certificate, and then
Just
we'll
naming you as an additional.
and then we'll keep it.
The certificate holder.
Yeah. All right, go to the next. So that's general fund. Capital budget overview. Just kind of run down this one real quick. Interest, we're factoring in about 100,000. Grants, 5 million. Impact fees, 1.8 million. Our transportation utility fee, which again has to be isolated only to roads. I have it 1.4 million.
And that's growing over the number for this year, right? Wasn't that a $200,000 growth?
Well, technically we had leftover from the previous one, so we had a bigger number this year than we will in future years. So it's kind of like we have about $1 million from B and C, give or take,
Yeah.
and then so plus the 1.4.
And that's only
Last year we had about 3.
And that number really is only what we plan on, because we collect our transportation utility fee in its own separate fund. And then if we're going to make a project out of it, we'll transfer over to the capital budget to spend it. So that's what that is showcasing, is what projects we're gonna actually.
The 1.4 is what
Yeah.
we're collecting from.
Right. And then we have some fund transfers, 2.15 million from general fund and from the water fund. And then we're using a balance of our capital fund of 1.53 million. And that balance is a factor of, say I planned $9 million in projects, but I only got 7 million done. Sometimes because of the way that our calendar happens at the end of the year.
So you can accrue it.
I'm just rolling it forward.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and the big thing was that the pond, like the community pond or whatever we're gonna call it, has been rolling because we were trying to get,
So the state lets you accrue, lets you carry.
yeah.
Correct.
In capital.
Just capital.
Well, it is a governmental fund, and you can budget it to use fund balance. If it's an enterprise fund, it's considered a net retained earnings because it's more like a business. You can still, through a budgetary process, use fund balance. And since it's isolated just for capital, that's why you have a capital fund. You can spend capital in the general fund, but when you isolate it in the capital fund, it helps you to make sure it's only used for capital.
Yeah, usually there's a dog year for it anyways, because you can't just pull it in and just say, oh, this is for whatever. Usually there's something that you're ticketing, tying it to it, either this year, next year, or within a 5-year period.
So like on the water, I think you had an excess of 300 plus or something. You're pulling that and moving it to capital, or where does that go?
Well, when you get to water, we'll talk about that one.
Yeah, each
Because that's in front of my face. I need the numbers there so I can see what the question
So
is on that.
I think the biggest thing for, when presenting, at least to council, I know this for sure, is that they're gonna wanna know what projects are we doing this year.
Okay.
Cause that's gonna be, these numbers are great, but if there's nothing to go with it, what we're doing, I think that's gonna be huge. In
Okay.
fact, I'd say don't use the numbers, but the projects and what they're ticking to would probably be better than anything else.
Okay.
That
Well,
makes sense.
the next slide kind of has it at a high level. I didn't break it down by project, but you can see that's where it's all paying. So it's all paying for those things. I probably, to have it broken down more would be,
We could break it down, once we do this one, we can break
Mhm.
each one of those down to what they're going to.
Hear it off on the same.
Yeah.
space.
like project by project, that's probably more transparent. I was just trying to have a little high level aggregated a little bit, just so you can see what that's going for, how much is going to parks, how much is going to roads. Development includes our community pond, even though there's kind of a parks element to it, just because ultimately it's being funded to help with water retention, and it's covered by grants and impact fees and things of that nature.
So did all of the grant money come for moving the pond?
You mean the overall,
Yeah,
like 5 years ago plan?
yeah.
It's looked completely different,
It's-
but yes,
Yeah, it's changed.
yeah.
We
So
did
like,
get it though.
Huh?
We are getting the grant money.
that comes from grant money and also the sale of the land. That's the kicker. Because
Okay.
if we don't have the
And then
sale of the
sale of
land,
land's got to stay with that
Yep.
entity
Correct.
to move it to the new.
Yeah. that's the key thing.
On park capital, you've got comments in there that we're renovating the soccer fields. Based on our drive around, I didn't see anything that we needed to fix.
So most of
As a
that
soccer player, I would agree.
as most of that was irrigation. It's to clearly define that, like, hey, instead of overwatering the whole park, that we can be more specific on the playing fields, upkeep of all those playing fields. Because yeah, they look wonderful in the spring. I'll take you guys back in 4 months.
Well,
once-
when we turn the water off
Yeah.
August 1st, then
when
football traffic.
when everybody's played all summer long on them, and then we have to start worrying about safety concerns and those kind of things. But yeah, so it was a combination of irrigation, upkeep, all of that.
When you say irrigation, like moving pipe, moving sprinkler lines, that kind of stuff? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Maybe in the description, it'd be good
we can definitely do
to
that.
describe in all of the capital
Mhm.
for your point, so everybody understands where it's going and why.
If I can explain it to the wife, we're all good.
You'll be all right.
Okay, we can go to the next one. Just
And then we had 40 grand a year in mower purchases.
So that on that capital sheet, it's every other year, and it's four of those mowers. Again, that's another thing. We also bring it back anywhere from a third to half of that money in selling the equipment back to, or selling those pieces of equipment. So we have some revenue there too, once we sell the piece of equipment. But the 40,000 covers 2 mowers. And like I said, we have 4 of them, so it's an every other year situation. So we do 40,000, covers 2 mowers. We bring back anywhere from $14,000 to $20,000 in revenue, or for selling those 2 pieces of equipment back into the department. And then 2 years later, we do the exact same thing with the other 2 mowers that we have, the other 2 big mowers that we have. So there's 4 of them that we kind of
So
rotate.
recycling too.
4 machines, 4-year cycle,
4,
or 4-year machines, 6-year cycle.
it's 4 machines, and it's basically 4-year cycle. Yeah, because, yeah.
okay. Our special revenue funds that we have, we got a few more of them too, but the ones that sort of have community impact are aquatics. Because of your question there, Mike, I think we can probably move that revenue figure up a little bit, but right now we're predicting 615.
What was the revenue last year? Wasn't it 7? Was the number I had in my head. Was I off on that?
For what?
Revenue on Pool?
Pool is, no, it was like,
31.
well, that was total with everything. When you say revenue, are you talking ticket sales or everything?
He has revenue 615.
Yeah, it was
Wasn't
six something.
total last year?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have it right here, but yeah, it was something like that. So, and I think they're projecting a 50 cent. Did I hear
Correct.
increase? So, but I think,
And we're only 100,000 off of our budget.
Yeah.
So I think we'll hit that by the end of June. It's, so I'm confident, I think we can move that number up.
yeah, and I think one of the things that I was looking at in the audit report is they're still tracking or maybe it was in the budget. I can't remember. Anyway, but they're still tracking what they put in like a while back for RDA. So there's still like a fund balance at the end of the day sitting there, right? Or am I losing it?
Well, so we have
And
some
that's fake.
we have
I
some
don't know if it's
RDA transfer money in, but then it comes out as a capital
Well,
expense.
true, but this is like from a while back. There
Oh.
was an influx, and it's been carrying on. And every quote unquote profit that we've had from gets added to that. And I was like, I didn't see it this year, and I was wondering if that just kind of are we not really tracking that? And that's the way you're looking at. We have to,
Yeah,
because
I might need a
that-
longer conversation with
yeah,
you on that.
yep.
So,
To clarify the 100,000 so that you get, because
Yeah.
you may
See me square?
Yeah, I see both of you guys. I'm like, wait a second, what?
You got May, June.
So yeah, we still got, well, mostly June because the pool will open on the 23rd. So we'll have a little bit of May, and then we'll have all the revenue for June. So that's what he's saying.
Okay.
that's what
That's what we'll make up.
because it's split.
Probably on
that's
top.
the hard part is that you can't guesstimate because last year was a really good year because of all the sun, but this year might not be. So
Who
you're
knows?
guessing.
and that's why, at the end of the year, we did it last year. I'll do it again this year. In the fall, we'll do a Cherry Days and Aquatics review. Cherry Days is a little easier because it really is all in one year. But because the Aquatics is broken between 2 fiscal years, it makes sense to sort of squeeze them together and do a report on how did the summer of 2026 go.
Did you implement the new price already this year when it opened? Didn't you say it opens already or is it going to open?
No, it's
After
gonna
Memorial Day.
No, are you gonna implement the new price this year or are you gonna wait till July 1 after the budget deal?
Depends. Depends what the council wants to do. Because we haven't even talked about it. So
So you're looking forward to hearing my suggestion?
yes, that's a good idea. Put that down on your list so I don't have to say it.
It's on my list.
Sweet.
Next slide. Motor pool fund. I'm just gonna say right now, I'm still working on it. Going back to that depreciation. I'm looking at every single piece of equipment. I pulled that yesterday.
That'd be great
Um,
to get that level of detail.
And one
so
of the
you
things
can
I'm trying to
understand
make sure that
it.
we're doing is our motor pool fund is or should be treated like an enterprise fund according to government accounting standards, which means that we should be expensing the depreciation and some of the capital lease costs, but really we ought to move the purchase of the capital over onto the balance sheet and smooth that out. And right now, it looks to me like in some instances, we've double dipped where we're charging both the lease cost or the capital cost plus the depreciation, and we're like charging ourselves that. And I want to make sure that we're not
That's what it looked like.
double dipping. So that's something that we've got to work on. And if you saw that and that kind of came to your attention, then that makes me feel good that I think I'm going down the right.
I questioned it.
Yeah, I'm
In
glad
the
you
same
did.
manner.
Yeah, and part of it's just because I'm looking at it from what we've done in years past, and I'm just the default position sometimes is just do what you've always done, but then you got to look at it and go, wait a minute, it looks to me like we might be over extending ourselves a bit.
I thought the same thing a couple years ago and then went through and she explained it. So I was like, okay.
Well,
And it could be just a way that two different way of interpreting things such that
capitalized leasing is a very complicated accounting function that you have to go through and do a lot of net present value. And at the end of the day, you're really only supposed to cost your internal rate of return, your leasing costs, which it's just a number out of your head. But you have to expense it, and then you pay for the depreciation of those lease those leases. If you buy the capital outright, like some of our capital projects, we just buy outright. Well, that makes it easier. You just move it to the balance sheet and depreciate it on a straight line. But the capitalized leasing, which we have a lot of, I've kind of gone through and looked at. But I want to look at not just what we're wanting to add, but I got to look at the whole thing, and I got to restructure it. So this is going to be work in progress. The vehicle program, to just kind of give you that. Generally, we buy and trade within 1 year, so we're not going to capitalize our vehicles that way. They get a 1 year use. We're turning around, we're selling them. That may not last forever,
That's kind of,
but
But it has worked for the
But it's
last,
allowable.
but it's worked for the last 10 years.
yeah.
I mean, in fact,
yeah,
in most years out of the last 10 years, we've brought more money in than we've spent on the vehicles.
which is bizarre, but that's the way it's worked.
Well, used values jumped way up because of COVID.
Correct.
So we benefited from it.
Yes.
But now you're on the backside of it.
Yeah, and it very well could be
And the
different.
price that we get on the state contract.
But yeah, our state contract pricing,
Right.
that's what's the biggest part of it. It's not so much the
Discounts
used
is
market
the price.
moved way up. This is the sticker price because of the state contract. There's this many rebates to that truck. Say the truck's $40,000, we get $6,000 in rebates on the state contract. So now we're only paying $34,000 for that truck. So when we go to turn and sell it again for that next year, we're making that a lot of that rebate money back up. And so that's how we've always made the program work. And I mean, like I said, it's always worked the last 10 years, but we do constantly watch it because it's like, if we come to a year where it doesn't work, it's like, okay, yeah, let's have that adjustment. And if it doesn't work the second year, it's like, maybe we need to talk about not doing the program this way anymore.
Have other cities been doing this?
Yeah, there's quite a bit now.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot when
I mean,
we
it's a great
first started.
program.
Yeah, when we first started, it's just a lot of work for us to, I mean, cause we buy 25 trucks and we turn around and we sell 25 trucks,
There's a lot of value in
12
that for you,
months,
though.
you're, doing it later, but
And it makes accounting really simple because it's only being used 1 year. It allows us to only just expense the net.
Well, you're not buying tires, you're not
Right.
doing big repairs.
I mean, in a lot of cases, there's some vehicles that we have because they're just used around town. Like we don't even actually hit an oil change on them. I mean,
Don't tell me that, because then you don't need it.
That's what I was gonna say. That many vehicles, you're not getting oil change on, I'm like, can you get away without that vehicle?
No, I mean, because there's staff spread out all over. I mean, but yes,
That's a fair question though, Mike.
But if it's a net zero, it doesn't matter. Anyway.
It might be,
Yeah,
it might be
does
one of
matter.
those vehicles where you need it if you
Because-
need it, but
you got
It
insurance.
does
but
matter
maybe you
because it
can
reduces
rent it, who
footfall.
knows? If you need it. You'd have to do a cost benefit analysis. Does it make sense just to rent it for that onesie twosie times you need it, or?
and we did look at that because 6 years ago we did both. So we did purchase vehicles and we leased a handful of vehicles. And it was the leased ones that because these other trucks we were making money on, and some of those vehicles that have the 6,000 to 10,000 miles, those are the ones that we make the most money back on. So they keep the program,
But they're not getting the oil change.
Yeah.
Cause you're not, yeah.
so.
Okay.
And that was, you think about the use.
Mhm.
That was my comment back on the sweeper truck purchase.
Yeah.
How often do we use the sweeper truck?
So we do have a contract, to your point. You asked so we already have a contract.
So do we need to buy a sweeper truck then?
No, and so I don't know where you found it in your capital sheets, but our capital sheets, we have it all the way at like 2032 is when we would look at buying another truck.
There was one, I'll have to find it. There was one next year.
No,
I think it was on the yellow sheets.
no, it's not on there for sure.
Has a discussion been had about charging for the sweeper truck? Meaning if they were going sweeping, like,
You mean
the
leaf
vac
leaf
truck,
The
You don't have
vac
to
truck,
check it.
the leaf truck.
where would
That's
the,
different.
has that discussion been had on the leaf truck?
No,
Well,
because
we'll look for it, Mike, make sure it's.
I don't know if we
Okay.
will. I don't know if we'll re-up, because when we bought the back truck the very first time, we paid $200,000, and it was for a whole different, it was to clean basins and do different things, and it's turned into this different program, right? Well, now a new leaf truck is close to like $600,000.
I don't
And
know, that's wrong.
in my mind, I
That's on
don't
the
like,
capital sheet,
I-
right?
Okay.
That's the one I don't know when that was, but
okay, so yeah,
Wasn't that-
it's updated since then, because it is all the way to 33.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're almost about ready to wrap up.
I got 2 more slides, we're done. So, the last, this is our enterprise funds overview. I could go slide by slide, but in terms of how we budget for enterprise funds, we'll have some savings because we have some roll forward projects. This all could use a little more refinement, but we do need to do it because this impacts our fee schedule.
Right,
So we've got to get through this and probably go through another round of it.
because I think you had to carry forward to like 300 and something.
Especially on the
a
water
couple
one.
of them.
Yeah. The water one's probably the most complicated of the 4. But you'll see there's revenues and expenditures where we taken more than what we typically spend. But then at some point in the 5-year plan, we might be using more to spend money on upgrades and fixtures that relate to capital, because capital has to be put in here. As you'll see in the budgets, we try to do this on purpose. The capital expenditure will show as the cost out. Whatever we're paying for the capital asset, you're going to see it as an expense, and then it moves off the sheet as an offset. When I got here, I thought that was bizarre, but I guess that's fairly common in some governments, and it provides more transparency. Sometimes when you pay for things as an asset, it goes over onto the asset ledger, and people don't see it as easily. So that's sort of the full on overview of our enterprise funds. We have some questions on the transfer station fees, but that's sort of where we're at with the enterprise funds. It's a lot of money in there, but
And I think in the solid
Excuse
waste,
me.
you showed the tipping fees going down.
You said that I was gonna follow up with Peter on that, because
flipping
The
fees.
transfer
Transfer.
tipping fee.
That's why the transfer station fee cost, that's why I bolded that, because that doesn't make sense to me. So, we're
Yeah,
probably,
with more houses and all that.
we're gonna
like,
review that.
so.
It's probably, of all of the fees that look like to me that we're gonna have to raise, it's gonna be the garbage.
Trash, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So we get this straight, we're gonna raise street fees in the tough, we're gonna raise property taxes, and we're gonna raise solid waste fees, garbage fees.
Um,
And most of solid waste is a pass through to us, because
there's like a CSI pass
Right.
too.
So we're gonna raise those 3 things this year,
Maybe.
is the plan.
maybe.
right, as of today.
Okay.
And on your budget sheets, the income didn't match what you had at the top of the sheet,
Oh.
didn't match at the bottom of the sheet.
Yeah, I looked at that and I think it's, as I read through it, you had to do the math and add all the different sections of the
There
revenue.
was one though, I picked that up on one of them, but on one of them, I don't remember which one, it
Okay.
was off.
I'll go through and look. If it's off, I gotta call our software, because it should
I think I tagged which one it was.
It should add up. And if it, so I'll walk through that a little more. And actually, if you could line it out for me, then I can go through and if it's really a problem, I can call our software and be like, hey, calculus not
I
adding
think
up.
it's in these
Okay.
comments.
Oh, in your comments. Okay.
Yeah.
Last one. Just again, still updating. We talked about fine tuning salaries and wages. We're finding our admin offset costs. Things we've all talked about this, our enterprise fund fee schedule. I've got a roads income expenditure analysis I want to do. And then impact fee analysis. Our 400 feet east widening fund wasn't presented in the tentative budget. So that has to be updated. So I've updated that. And that's a fund that just kind of is isolating our big project up there for the widening of that road. And then just the little things that come up. This is, a transfer schedule. What this is to help you sort of see how money flows from one fund to the other.
Okay.
And it should zero, the point of this is that you'll see these little dash lines. That's supposed to be a zero to show that it's coming out of one fund, coming into the other fund. It should match. We have about, in terms of what we transfer out of our general funds, about 1.2 million. And then I changed that 31 million on the police impact fee fund to 31. And then on the what I'm still adjusting is that lease cost for the motor pool. Right now I've got it at 642,000. That's gonna change. That's how much motor pool is charging general fund plus all the other funds. So that's a number that can swing a little bit. But hopefully this will help it make sense to you when you see fund transfers, how that sort of plays out.
I love that, by the way. Thank you. Too good.
That's it, or at least the things I was gonna go over. And
So on each one of these pages, we've got to update and then tweak this. When are we gonna have like I understand it's a moving project, but
yeah,
I mean, if the council is expecting
Next Tuesday.
input and suggestions from us, we need a little bit more firm.
Well,
what's our schedule for these meetings?
we're doing something next Tuesday, all right?
Well, Tuesday's council.
Yeah.
Tuesday's council.
And then Wednesday, you guys asked to have another.
Yeah, but I think for the most part, I think what council, I mean, this is my personal opinion, is that whatever you guys as a committee can press forward as these are the things we need you to either philosophically or go fix in the budget. That way we're ahead of, because Peter's still tweaking stuff. He's gonna tweak stuff for the rest of the next 2 months. Yeah. And so it's one of those things that, we don't need it next Tuesday, but it would really help.
A perfect
So-
example would be like that amphitheater wage costs. If your committee feels like, hey, we want that in the budget, then you can recommend it, and then we can show it.
Well,
That's what council
when you
wants.
say you want it in the budget, I look at that and I think the cost of labor on the amphitheater needs to be included with the cost of the amphitheater. So when you say put it in the budget, if we say put it in the budget, and I was like, okay, now we're gonna add $20,000 more to the amphitheater budget, like that's backwards in my mind. What I'm saying is, if we're putting labor into it, it needs to be there. And we would then tell the council, hey, you've got to raise usage fees on the amphitheater because we're losing more than what we're actually seeing because you're not factoring in labor. Does that make sense? Or
Well, yeah, but there might be again, back to a philosophical debate about it might make sense to lose money year one, but by year 2, 3, 4, and 5, it shouldn't.
See, when was the amphitheater built? 10, 12 years ago? By year 12, 13, we should be.
But it made more money last year than the year before, and the trend line is up. So
Hey, I tell this to my wife all the time. Past is the past. The forward, all we can do is change the future, not change the past.
If I'm understanding right, when you say
Anybody else
put
have
it in
the
the
same-
budget, it's in the budget in that it's
It's somebody's-
under salaries. What he's saying is that we're going to line item identify it
Yes.
as an amphitheater
Right,
expense.
that's what I'm saying, yeah.
So that, we're not adding anything to the budget. We're
Right.
saying there's this piece over here that there's 20 grand that gets used in labor that goes to the amphitheater. We're going to identify it as being served.
we'll pull it out of the HR budget, which is where it is right now, and put it in the amphitheater budget.
Yeah.
That's
And that way the amphitheater shows it's a $20,000 to $30,000 revenue, but it's a $60,000 expense.
I just,
Because it
Yeah.
improved
the thing I worry about is the slippery slope of making that an actual position.
That's my point. is I
I don't want that.
Right. That's why I don't want to put it in there and say, oh, well, now we gotta literally budget and fund it over there. So that's,
Yeah, my only suggestion would be is,
That's been our debate. That's why we haven't put it in there.
yeah,
Yeah.
I personally would not put it in, but know that it's in there, that it's part of it. And so that you can back it out in a, not in the budget, in our own separate little spreadsheet or whatever that we can control and watch. Because I'd rather not make it official until we know that, yeah, that's something that, because maybe we hire a part-time person instead of stealing from the person that's doing their normal job and then also this other job. That's the thing that I start to get a little bit squeamish about, is that if they're taking away, or, you know, hey, they're not doing their full job because, you know, they should be doing all of this, but they're only doing, you know, they're getting away with doing less because they also have to do this other job. That's where I get a little
There's
bit,
also a lot
how
of
many
work.
hats can they get without,
There's also a lot of
missing
work being done off the clock too
right?
for this person.
And
So.
that's no bueno. Anyway,
Yeah, it's not, but
okay, well,
it's $5.
finalize the numbers best you can by next week, I guess, and then we'll finalize our recommendations as
But-
well. I mean,
we're presenting to council on Tuesday,
and-
but it's still a tentative budget.
okay.
Again, you can stab at it until,
True, but I would put any good stabs that you got next Tuesday.
That stab for me or stab for you?
Huh?
He's talking to you.
Okay,
As the subcommittee,
okay, so you want the
Chair.
so you want the presentation next Tuesday then?
I don't want a
from me?
presentation. I want something that has an initial look at stuff.
Like a bunch of bullet points?
Okay,
But a bunch of bullet points. You did that last year before, and then,
Yeah.
so at least that we have an idea. It doesn't have to be finalized.
okay.
I would keep coming. Like, as we
Mhm.
finalize things, oh, and this, oh, and this. So anyway,
the bottom line is the interim
I'll reach
budget
out.
is,
Mike, I'll reach out to
When?
you as well for some other thoughts, because there's so much in my head and I notes and that I'll reach out off time and get your
Okay.
thoughts, so.
we have to pass what we call the interim budget by the middle of June. And that's where things need to sort of like
coalesce.
Mhm.
coalesce and be more solid.
You're kind of locking
So
things in.
before the
Yeah.
middle of June, we need to give them everything.
Sooner the better. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds
with
good.
enough time for them to. go through it.
Right.
So I had a couple of extra things. The paving study for the city. If we got that, so we can post it, so people can get into it and see it.
I thought it is posted too.
It is posted,
It's on that tough, page on the
the whole
website.
paving plan, the study.
The study of the plan.
The study?
The study.
Yeah, it's on the.
And then our plan to attack what's listed in that.
We don't have that yet, but we will update that now that, because we've got all the bids back now, so we know that we do have the money to do all these projects that, you know, that we
So
had
you're
on
gonna
our
project
list.
it out like a 5-year, 10-year plan to,
We haven't
to
done
try
that
to go
yet,
through
but we have this first year. But now that, yes, that is our next goal, is to make it a 5-year
Okay.
plan of saying, these are. you know,
that'd be
this
good
is the
because
next
you're
year,
gonna have a
this
lot
is
of
next
people challenge this tough going forward still. I mean,
That's Pulver's plan.
Well, like, if we've got $1.8 million of road capital projects, that seems low. Like, shouldn't it be like 3? Isn't that what we kind of are pushing for in terms of capital spending a year? Or is that including the street
That would,
department?
yeah, that's including street
Okay.
department.
That's the one thing I wanted to kind of go through, is to make sure that we're spending what we said we were gonna spend in our tough study.
and then we're gonna look at the fee schedules.
Yeah. That's kind of that's kind of one extra thing to look at. And
So,
again,
and on the fees, you know, kind of tying to that, the Fruitland capital, the new well, any additional water storage, those type of things. Are all those necessary because of the continued build out of the city?
Some are and some aren't. So like the Fruitland one that you asked about,
Uh-huh.
it isn't. I mean, that vault got put in the 70s.
So it's just,
We've done
we've
done things to just
Okay.
basically keep it going. Well, now we're getting ready to do the Fruitland Drive intersection. And so we're going to put new vaults and all of that stuff in, or new infrastructure, so that we don't put this brand new roundabout and all that stuff, and then 2 years later have to go dig it up and put a new
perfect
vault.
sense. But how about the additional well that we're doing this year?
Yeah, but most of that, or almost, yeah, most of it will go towards impact fees. because it's in zone one, which we can show that all of that will.
So on all of those impact fees for that particular part of the city, are those impact fees for those sites going up to offset that cost?
Well, it's impact fees just from homes that are built all over the city.
Yeah.
I know, but if we weren't building out the city in that particular area,
Right.
it wouldn't be required. We wouldn't need to do that well,
Correct.
correct?
Correct. And so those impact fees have been being collected and they will be used on that.
But what I'm saying is, should those developers that are building in that zone, should they pay an increased impact fee to offset that?
I don't think we can do that from the state.
Because you have to do
Your
an
impact fee is,
study.
your water impact fee is your water impact.
But
fee.
your overall impact
Regardless
fee
of
for-
where you,
Or the system.
those impact fees are used only for new infrastructure wherever it's needed. Doesn't matter if it's a heavily used zone or right now a lightly used zone. It's
We can-
just
We can
straight
find the
across.
last study, and I've seen it. Haven't been that long ago.
24.
Well, you bumped last year impact fees for
Correct.
water sewer.
Yeah.
And
There's
that's
a big
based on a
study that
study.
you have to do to do that. You can't just bump them.
Because I mean, the next tank we have to put in probably won't have DARPA fees or whatever that was that you were talking about
Mhm.
attached to it.
ARPA.
HARPA.
Yeah.
DARPA is a completely different deal.
Mhm.
Yeah, DARPA is a different, maybe you're lost.
That's the dark space.
Weather
But,
modification.
but what my point was is we're gonna have some significant cost hits to upgrade our infrastructure. Are we recovering enough on the impact fee we're charging?
Yeah, and that's what the impact fee study does.
I know, but that's my question. We did one like 2 years ago.
Correct.
Do we need to do another one to identify those? Cause you got a lot of build out coming.
That's a good question for council. Do we need to do
Yeah.
another one? Because
Another
they're
impact fee.
75 to 100 grand to do one?
Hmm.
Because you can't do it yourself, right? Conflict of interest.
It's gotta be a third
You have to
party.
hire a third party entity and they ain't cheap.
So you guys have a better feel for this. Are we on target or do we need to do something?
As of right now, I think we are on target, but you're 100% right. I mean, depending on where development, if we started getting a ton of development up top and it's like, hey, we need another reservoir up there, then that might
Mhm.
change, and which would affect, if we did another impact fee study, it would affect, yes, no, you need another tank up here and it's gonna cost you this much more money, which means the impact fees need to go up. But if, most of our stuff stays down here, what we do, we just have that brand new tank there. And so we
Mhm.
do have that for build out. And so, yeah, no, I think that the impact fee studies for most of the, enterprise funds are right where they should be. But there has been a few of them that have been questioned, like maybe we should not do an impact fee, because the last time we did it for all of them, like water,
Mhm.
sewer, storm, right? It's like, well, if we feel like the sewer's in good shape and we feel like for build out, we're gonna be just fine, like, let's only just do the impact fee for the water or storm or however that's. But as of right now, I think we're in a good spot.
They just went up a lot,
Correct,
right? And have the developers has there been pushback saying, this is a bit much? Is there-
A little bit, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, we're still developing, right?
Yeah, yeah, so it's
says-
not,
Well,
okay.
yeah, and the kicker is that this is not just us.
Yeah.
If you look at all the cities and see the
Mhm.
minutes,
Mhm.
exact
Okay.
same thing.
Can you use the RDA money towards that study? That 400,000 of
It has to go
RDA?
towards things that.
It's gotta be,
It
it's
can
gotta
only
be
be, well, the
physical.
RDA is gone.
It's
It's expired.
Well, there was
There's
400,
the CDA
right?
and
most of that
the money
RDA.
that's left in the RDA, you can only use
But
that
this-
money for projects in the RDA.
So what if the CDA? I'm not familiar
Community
with that.
development, it's the same thing as the RDA with a different name and slightly different rules.
And different area.
Yeah,
And a different area.
And we didn't even talk about that tonight.
Yeah, cause you got
So-
400, I think, that
Yeah.
went in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't really talk.
And that's state contribution?
No, it's
No.
tax entities. that
It's
are
tax.
collected.
So some of your property taxes go into that actually.
Okay.
Oh.
And then the 91,000 you had for power increase, is that the
So
cost?
we only jumped it up 20,000. So I don't know where, when you said that they jumped up like 90% or something.
91,
It was 91,000. And it's on
91,000
the,
or 91?
it's up over the streetlights thing. Let's take a look at that.
Okay.
I think,
Or are you talking the water?
The
the
water.
power for
the power,
pumping?
power for pumping?
Yeah. 'Cause
oh, never
the
mind.
power for
That's a different one.
pumping
Yeah.
went up like $20,000. So you had wrote in your notes that it went up like 90%.
Yeah,
That's not the,
That's
so
what-
it went from
that's what's
120 to
on the-
140.
that's what's on the budget sheet.
Okay, then I'm wondering if the calculation's off or something, because we went from $120,000 to 140. And the reason for that is we just didn't get the snow pack, so we know we're gonna have to pump a lot more wells than using springs. And so we know that we're going to have an increased cost in power for pumping.
Right, but
based on
that, but
snow
that
pack.
number was just under 100,000 on the line that I was looking at.
Okay, yeah, we'll look at that, because I'm almost certain that last year was 120 and this year's, we're asking to go to 140.
But,
Okay.
but Mike's really good at doing all the
Yeah,
I'll look
deep
at
dive
it. Yeah,
stuff,
he is.
into the weeds.
Thanks, Peter.
I do appreciate that.
Reach out if I have questions too, and I'll reach out as well for other. My meeting for next week.